How is the hobby world of collectibles going to grind to a halt? Understanding what a tariff does on the buyer who is in the US, let's look at what the tariff is. It is a fee that must be paid to customs on an item of any value brought into the US from China. So who pays the fee? The buyer if they want it delivered to them. How is it collected? The shipper will normally pay the duty fee, tariff, on the buyer's behalf and bill the buyer or request the fee they paid COD, cash on delivery. So say one buys a $300 item from seller in China. So China charges you the item price and shipping and it is sent. It arrives at customs and in order for the item to be released the duty fee, tariff, must be paid. So who pays? China seller doesn't. They just sold you the item and charge you for the item and the shipping. The US has now put an extra cost on the item coming to the US. In one example, say FedEx is shipping it to you. Fine, the seller shipped the item to you via FedEx to include what every carriers are used to hand it off from China carriers to the US carrier. But here is the kicker. They did not charge you for the duty fee, tariff. So before FedEx will deliver it to you, the duty fee, tariff, must be paid to customs for the package to continue its journey to the buyer. This can be done in a number of ways. The carrier contacts you to pay the tariff so they can get it out of customs. The carrier pays the tariff and bills the buyer. The carrier requires COD for the tariff before they will deliver it. How do US tariffs work on eBay sellers shipping from China? Or how does shipping cost work with tariffs? ChatGPT said, when a US buyer purchases an item on eBay from a seller based in China, tariffs and shipping costs are handled separately, but both can affect the total price the buyer pays. Here's how it works. Receipt. 1. Tariffs, import duties. What they are. Tariffs are taxes the US government imposes on certain imported goods, often from specific countries, like China, to protect domestic industries or as part of trade policy. Who pays? The buyer in the US is typically responsible for paying any import duties or tariffs if applicable. When they're charged, these are usually collected at the time of delivery by the shipping carrier. For example, USPS, UPS, FedEx, depending on the declared value of the item, the type of item, classified under a tariff code, the country of origin, small orange diamond. Items under $800 in value may qualify for Section 321, de minimis exemption, meaning no import duty is charged in most cases. Small orange diamond, for higher value or specific regulated goods, for example, electronics, textiles, tariffs might apply even under $800. Package box. 2. Shipping costs, set by the seller. eBay sellers set their own shipping prices or offer free shipping, which just means it's included in the item price. Shipping options. Sellers may use cheap economy shipping, like ePacket or China Post, or faster services like DHL or FedEx. Carrier fees. Some shipping services include customs clearance in the price, while others may charge an extra customs handling fee when delivering anti-clockwise direction arrows. How shipping and tariffs interact. The shipping cost doesn't include US tariffs or import taxes, unless the seller specifically offers delivered duties paid, DDP, which is rare on eBay. If tariffs apply, the buyer might get a notice to pay duties before receiving the item. Sellers often underdeclare values to avoid duties, against regulations, but it happens. Summary example. Let's say you buy a $30 drone from a Chinese eBay seller. Shipping, $5 via China Post, declared value, $30. Under $800 no duty. Tariff, $0. Because of de minimis threshold. Total cost, $35, unless customs flags the package. But if you buy a $1,200 electronic item, shipping, $50 via FedEx, declared value, $1,200. Tariff, you might owe 10 to 25%, depending on product classification. FedEx may collect $120, $300 in tariffs plus handling fee. Would you like help estimating tariffs for a specific product you're considering? You said, so how is the tariff collected if one buys the $1,200 electronic item, when eBay only asks for item cost and shipping cost? ChatGPT said, great question, and you're right to notice that eBay doesn't include tariffs or import duties at checkout when buying from international sellers. Here's how the tariff is actually collected for an item, like your $1,200 electronics purchase from China. Bank. How tariffs are collected, step by step. Seller ships the item to you, the U.S. buyer, usually declaring the item's value and description on the customs form. The item arrives at U.S. Customs, via air, sea, or courier. Customs reviews the item's declared value, type, based on tariff codes, and origin. If the item is above the $800 de minimis threshold, U.S. Customs assigns a duty, for example, 10% minus 25% depending on the item type. The shipping carrier, for example, FedEx, DHL, UPS, or USPS, pays the tariff on your behalf to release the item. Then the carrier bills you, usually in one of three ways. Before delivery, they'll email/call you or hold the item. On delivery, COD, cash on delivery for duties. After delivery, you'll get a bill in the mail or via email. Spanner. Important notes. eBay doesn't collect or show these tariffs up front unless the seller uses a program like eBay's Global Shipping Program, GSP, or DDP shipping, which are rare for China-based sellers. If you buy from a seller using the Global Shipping Program, then eBay calculates and charges import duties at checkout. In that case, no surprise fees later. Electric light bulb. Example, you buy a $1,200 graphics card from China. eBay checkout shows, item, $1,200 shipping, $50 total paid to eBay seller, $1,250. What you don't see, U.S. Customs duty of, say, 15%, $180, FedEx advancement fee of $1525 when it arrives. FedEx contacts you to pay $200 before delivery. Restricted symbol. What if you don't pay the tariff? If you refuse to pay, the item can be held in customs, returned to sender, or even destroyed. You'll typically not be refunded by the seller unless they offer a return policy covering it. Would you like help checking the exact duty rate for a specific electronic product, like a laptop or drone? You said, so what happens if carrier pay and bills or COD the item and the buyer does not pay? This would mean the carrier would eat the cost of the tariff. So why would they even consider that route? ChatGPT said, excellent insight, and you are spot on to question the risk for carriers. Here's what really happens behind the scenes, and why carriers don't actually eat the cost even if a buyer refuses to pay. Truck. When the carrier pays the tariff up front, yes, carriers like FedEx, DHL, or UPS often prepay duties and taxes to U.S. Customs, so they can quickly clear the item and maintain fast delivery times. But this does not mean they're financially on the hook. Here's how they protect themselves. Receipt. What happens if the buyer refuses to pay COD/duty bill? Carrier holds the package. They won't deliver until the duty is paid. The buyer is notified. Email, phone, sometimes a slip. Buyer doesn't pay. Carrier keeps the item for a set number of days, often 5 to 14 business days. If no payment is made, the item is returned to sender, RTS, usually at the seller's expense or abandoned/destroyed, especially if returned isn't possible or cost-effective. Carrier charges back to the seller. The original shipper, the seller in China, typically has a shipping contract with the carrier. That contract says the seller is liable for unpaid duties or return shipping costs. So if you, the buyer, refuse, the carrier recovers the cost from the seller. Not themselves. Clockwise circle arrows representing media playback. Repeat. Why carriers still prepay tariffs? It speeds up customs clearance and delivery. They have legal agreements and credit arrangements with sellers that protect them. The risk is pushed to the seller, who may then choose to ban U.S. sales or blacklist certain buyers. Thinking face. So what happens to the buyer? If you refuse to pay, you don't get the item. You might not get a refund unless eBay or the seller agrees. In rare cases, you could get a strike or warning on eBay for not accepting delivery. In short, the carrier protects itself by making the seller liable,